out there, welcome to Wake Up to the Bible. I'm Daniel Kaplan. I'm here with my father, Dr. Kaplan. We're going through the books of the law, Genesis through Deuteronomy, over the course of this year, a little bit every day. And we're using the traditional Jewish Torah portion readings. They chop them up into weekly portions and daily, or 7 readings every week. Today is the 5th reading for this week, and it's a little bit longer, so if you thought the last couple of days were a little bit short, well, this one's basically a full chapter. It's 26:30 through 27:27.
Just a comment. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a doctor of religion and social ethics, for those of you who may be new. Also, I want to shout out to South Africa. I'm glad we have interest in this program, even extending that far away from where we are. We're in Central Florida.
Yes, and if you're listening from a different region of the world, let us know, because it's always fun to hear about where people are coming from. Comment below, that's for sure. I know we have people in Texas as well. Almost another foreign country. I'm just kidding. All right, so I better get started with the Bible before I get canceled. Okay. And he made them a feast, and they ate and drank. And they rose early in the morning and swore to each other, and Isaac sent them away, and they went from him in peace. And it happened on that day that Isaac's servants came and told him of the well they had dug, and they said to him, "We have found water." And he called it Sheba. Therefore the name of this town is Beersheba to this day. And Isaac was 40 years old, and he took as wife Judith the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basmath the daughter of Elon the Hittite. And they were a provocation to Isaac and to Rebekah. And it happened when Isaac was old, that his eyes grew too bleary to see, and he called to Esau his elder son, and said to him, "My son!" And he said, "Here I am." And he said, "Look, I have grown old. I know not how soon I shall die. So now take up, pray, your gear, your quiver, and your bow, and go out to the field, and hunt me some game, and make me a dish of the kind that I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, so that I may solemnly bless you before I die." And Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to Esau's son, and Esau went off to the field to hunt game to bring. And Rebekah said to Jacob her son, "Look, I have heard your father speaking to Esau your brother, saying, 'Bring me some game, and make me a dish that I may eat, and I shall bless you in the Lord's presence before I die.' So now, my son, listen to my voice, to what I command you. Go pray to the flock, and fetch me from there 2 choice kids, that I may make them into a dish for your father of the kind he loves. And you shall bring it to your father, and he shall eat, so that he may bless you before he dies." And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, "Look, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth-skinned man. What if my father feels me, and I... Excuse me. What if my father feels me, and I seem a cheat to him, and bring on myself a curse, and not a blessing?" And his mother said, "Upon me your curse, my son. Just listen to my voice, and go fetch them for me." And he went, and he fetched, and he brought to his mother, and his mother made a dish of the kind his father loved. And Rebekah took the garments of Esau, her elder son, the finery that was with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And the skins of the kids she put on his hands, and on the smooth part of his neck. And she placed the dish and the bread she had made in the hand of Jacob her son. And he came to his father and said, "Father!" And he said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" And Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you have spoken to me. Rise, pray, sit up, and eat of my game, so that you may solemnly bless me." And Isaac said to his son, "How is it you found it this soon, my son?" And he said, "Because the Lord your God gave me good luck." And Isaac said to Jacob, "Come close, pray, that I may feel you, my son, whether you are my son Esau or not." And Jacob came close to Isaac his father, and he felt him, and he said, "The voice is of Jacob, and the hands are Esau's hands." But he did not recognize him, for his hands were like Esau's hands, and he blessed him. And he said, "Are you my son Esau?" And he said, "I am." And he said, "Serve me, that I may eat of the game of my son, so that I may solemnly bless you." And he served him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. And Isaac his father said to him, "Come close, pray, and kiss me, my son." And he came close and kissed him, and he smelled his garments, and he blessed him, and he said, "See, the smell of my son is like the smell of the field that the Lord has blessed." And that's where we're going to end. We're not going to get to the blessing today, but we do end up with this tragic story, positive story, mixed bag story. It's a mess, right? Absolute mess. What are some of the things that come to mind as you're looking at this situation, sir?
At the end of chapter 26, um, the name Beersheba already was there, but evidently this was a further reason that the name persisted. He found a well that he called Sheva,
Mm-hmm.
or seven, or also related to the word for oath. And so it's sort of it just confirms the Beersheba name that already was there. Uh, and then it talks about Esau marrying these two pagan women.
Yeah,
First of all, unlike Isaac,
right.
he takes two wives, and then plus he takes pagan wives,
Yep,
and Isaac's upset, and so is Rebecca.
right.
And so to go from that to chapter 27, it just makes it even all the more troubling. Why Isaac made that decision. Uh,
Well, it does start because it says Isaac was old and his eyes grew too bleary to see in this translation.
mhm,
Um, it could be that it's getting at a little bit more than that. It could be
yeah,
that there was some sort of issue. It may have been. I'm not saying like maybe it was like a mental issue, but there was some issue when it's talking about not seeing. That's usually in the Bible
could be.
more could be more than that. It could be that something happened and he had kind of lost his grounding to make that decision, right?
Well, if he were not, I never thought about it that way, but if he were not 100% mentally sharp, maybe that would excuse in a way, what Rebecca did.
Mm-hmm.
One could understand it more. I had never thought about it until just now. That if he weren't really as sharp as he should have been mentally, then maybe this was
Yeah.
how Rebecca wanted to handle it.
We have the five senses mentioned, but sight is not a thing. It's removed, right? And then he uses smell,
Yeah,
taste,
right,
and touch.
right.
But sound he ignores.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So that's kind of interesting too, right? So
Yeah.
he uses the three, and then the other one of them is ignored, and one of them doesn't even show up.
The fact that he had all these suspicions and still went ahead with it,
Mm-hmm.
again, it seems to indicate maybe a lack of being as sharp as he should be at that
Mm-hmm.
point. As I said, it's a possibility I had never considered until now.
Yeah. What some of the things I get out of this is just all of these parallels, right? Because you have two goats, which kind of makes you think of the Day of Atonement, right? And then you have bread and wine mentioned, which of course makes you think of, the what's the Last Supper ceremony and things like that, and just a lot of things going on here in terms of these symbols. Just are just kind of scattered through. It's like it sounds really ridiculous, but they call them like Easter eggs and like normal work. But it's like these little allusions to things, and I think I wouldn't say that this is like some sort of direct parallelism, like the two goats are somehow directly parallel to Day of Atonement or something like that. But I think it is getting at the significance of this event, and so throwing in these symbols is showing you the significance of what's going on. Although it is interesting because again, you have Isaac, who's kind of the symbol of Jesus, who's the ultimate high priest, and then you have these two goats. I just think it's kind of interesting. It's kind of fun from an artistic perspective. But again, this is where it talks about the dish that your dad loves. And earlier we did see Jacob cooking, right? So it does make you wonder if maybe that was one reason why Jacob was doing that, is he was trying to kind of get in his father's good graces.
It seems to me, as we keep reading, that Isaac eventually comes to understand that in fact Jacob should have been the one that he blessed. I mean, as we'll see it later in
Yeah,
the account, it seems like, and he seems to be reconciled with Rebecca.
yeah.
There doesn't seem to be acrimony about what she did.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing about I feel like the person that it's really hard to morally understand is Jacob, not Rebecca so much, because
Yeah.
Rebecca was given that promise directly from God, and it could be she could have very much felt like her hands were tied because her husband had decided what it is he wanted to do, which was against God's wishes. And especially if you get to the point where you feel like he was not in a most righteous state or mentally well state to do this, you can more understand that. The issue more is with Jacob, because when she's saying, do all these things, the only concern he seems to have is being discovered. He doesn't seem to be concerned about being deceptive. Which is interesting. He doesn't seem to be worried about the moral implications of deceiving his father. He just seems like he's concerned that his father's going to catch on to their plot.
Well, Jacob is a figure, maybe more so than the other two patriarchs, who seems to have to come to conversion. He
Mm.
he starts out as more of a conniver,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then finally he's Yisrael, Israel. Um, but Jacob had a very rough life, and he himself says that later.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah,
not only was he deceived by Laban, he was deceived by his own sons,
right.
and so on. So,
Yeah,
you know, uh,
definitely what goes around comes around.
yeah,
Yeah, involving a goat too.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah. So the goats are used, but again, getting back to the Day of Atonement, you have the kind of the deceptive goat and the goat that is the right one, and you can't even tell the difference. You need divine intervention in order to tell the difference.
right.
So it comes back to that. And that's something that we've just gotten in culture. That's just it's been able to you have like the satyr concepts of that. Like there's something about goats that even nowadays people kind of associate that way. It's just one of those things. Probably because of the biblical stories, it just sunk itself into other mythologies and stuff like that. One thing though this does tell you is about the human condition is that he's concerned, what if I'm discovered and all these implications are on me, and what Rebecca says, well, no, the implications are on me, and this is my plan. Generally speaking, what psychologists will tell you is the way to get humans to commit the biggest atrocities is to absolve them of the responsibilities. When you take the responsibility and say, well, actually, it's on me, you're just following my orders, you can get people to do almost anything. And so if I'm going to make an excuse for Jacob, I will say that's a very good tactic to use. It generally works really well. It's how you can end up with things like Nazism and stuff like that, because when you start just saying, well, I'm just going in the system, this isn't really my decision, I'm just following orders,
Right,
you can go down a very dark path. So,
right.
but again, I do think it's interesting when you have all these senses going on, because I feel like this is something that when you get to the Lord's Supper, what we call Remembrance Night, sometimes, that's a very fully sensory experience as well. And I think there is something to be said about that. But what do you make of the fact, though, that he disregards the voice? I just think that's kind of interesting. That it's like 3 out of 4, I guess, because he doesn't have one of his senses, but the other three are okay, and it's 3 out of 4, and so he just goes with the majority. But because there's a lot in the Bible about my sheep will hear my voice and things like that. So voice is generally something that has a lot of weight.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's like, and you heard my voice, and here he's like, it's not your voice, but I guess it also shows you that they had a difference in their voice as well,
One would assume that Jacob is trying to imitate Esau's voice, but yet,
and doing a lousy job,
but
I
yeah,
guess.
but not, yeah, he wasn't able to do it.
Hmm.
But I guess it points out just the pathos here, that you feel very sympathetic towards Isaac here, that he has his doubts, but he still goes ahead with it, and then later, I think it says he's trembling when he realizes that he made a mistake.
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting because well, what's the other thing too is it shows just how smart Rebecca was, right? Because she got the garments. Like she came up with a very, very clever plan. Because she even made sure that the garments were around where there was the cooking, and so it would smell like it and stuff like that. Like, it's quite an elaborate It's quite an elaborate deception.
And here again, he seemed to Isaac seemed to have this admiration for Esau as this outdoorsman, as a person of the field, as if maybe that's the person we want to lead the nation. More of a warrior type. And that came out also in what he says. That
Yeah, the smell
the
of my
smell
son is like the smell of the field that
that
the
the Lord
Lord
has
has
blessed.
blessed.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that was part of the week. I guess that was the kind of a vulnerability of Jacob.
Hmm.
But as Daniel pointed out, um, Jacob, the vulnerability of Isaac,
Right,
but Jacob finally does wind up wrestling God
right.
all night, so
Yeah.
he does in effect come into his own as a defender. And later on, he says about Joseph that he himself had in effect seized territory that he felt he understood he was entitled to, but he had gone out and taken it. He mentions to
Hmm.
Jacob, as you'll be hearing in the 48th chapter of Genesis when we get there.
Yeah.
Well,
It,
sorry, when he says this to Joseph, Jacob says it to Joseph.
yeah. It does make you wonder because Abraham, his big tests seem to be related to uh, his having children, right? That seemed to be the big thing that he had to wrestle with. But to your point, it seems like Isaac may have been more of like a wealth sort of thing or some sort of tangible, blessing thing, because his big thing is the reason why he wants to bless Esau is because of the field that God has blessed. So it's this like really tying together this physical wealth with um, righteousness, which is not exactly correct. And if you think about the way he would, there's not a lot in here about Isaac, being challenged, but the one places where he was all those battles about the wells and things like that. So it seems like he had to get, and then also the Philistines having to make a pact, a peacemaking pact, and stuff like that. So it is interesting, because you don't ultimately get a lot about Isaac in terms of particularly obviously negative behavior. He's one of the more straight laced patriarchs. You know what I mean? Because you don't really, nothing seems wildly off, but yet somehow he's going to bless the wrong person at the end. So there is a disconnect there somewhere,
Well,
right?
to me, it's almost shocking that the son goes out and marries two pagan women,
Uh huh.
and Isaac's so concerned about the delicious food that he
Yeah,
prepares for him. It it it
it
is
gets back to kind of materialistic somehow or
yeah. There
something.
seems to be a bit of a weakness there,
Hmm.
maybe a materialism there.
Yeah, it's almost like kind of prosperity gospel-ish. It's like because of but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
right.
like because of abundance, therefore good, and maybe he just had that disconnect and he wasn't quite there. And so he automatically kind of assigned, I'm assuming Esau was the more impressive physically looking one. And so he kind of assumed, well, he's the one that's going to get the blessing because obviously God wants the person he's going to bless to be the more, in terms of physical way, the stronger one, and all of that. And that was something that he didn't quite understand. He didn't exactly learn that lesson. And and to my dad's point, he said a couple podcasts ago, we don't really know if Rebecca ever told him the prophecy. You might get the impression she did not. Maybe she wasn't allowed to. Maybe I don't know, because maybe this was something Isaac didn't need to wrestle with himself. I don't know, but yeah, it does seem to be like that's kind of at the root of Isaac's failings as a human being, as we all have our failings. So interesting. Any other thoughts come to mind as we read through this?
No, I think it'd be good if we went ahead and went through the blessing and that material.
All right. So we're going to go ahead through the blessing tomorrow. A little cliffhanger for you. If you are not subscribed and you want to keep watching us, subscribe, hit the bell, like us, share us so other people will see us. Liking us helps that too. It helps us hit the algorithm, as the youngsters like to say. I know I say that because I feel old. But yes, so please do so. Get the word out because it's a good year to read the law. And we'll see you tomorrow.